up? What's going on? What's up, buddy?
Hi, you guys. How are you? It's so awesome seeing all of you guys here for Andrew Yang. It gets me so super hyped up and excited and glad to be here. My name's Lauren Evans. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and I swapped the sunshine for the snow because I know how important it is to be here. I've spent the last 5 years working for a tech startup. It was wildly successful. And about 6 months ago, my job was actually automated. So there are now robots doing my job. I started learning more and more about automation, which led me to learn more about Andrew Yang. I heard about him teaching the masses about automation, and I started learning more about his other policies. I got super, super excited and decided I have to be here. I have to support this guy, volunteer, and I'm here to honestly and hopefully encourage some of you guys to join this movement, listen to what he has to say, and hopefully you guys would be interested in volunteering. You can find me and some of the other organizers. Raise your hands, you guys, and volunteers. Awesome! So you can find these people, these awesome volunteers, and sign up with them so we can get you canvassing, or you can do phone calls, or door knocking. Keep in mind, I just learned one door knock is the equivalent to $240 in donations, so super helpful. Now I'm going to introduce Katie Dolan to the stage, and it was such an honor to be able to speak with you guys. I'm so excited.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you making the trek out on this blustery Saturday morning. As Lauren mentioned, I'm Katie, I'm a staffer here, and I'll be moderating today's Women's Town Hall. For those of you who don't know, today we will have 4 wonderful women taking the stage, telling their stories, and asking Andrew questions about issues that are dear to them. If you're not familiar with Andrew, he is an entrepreneur and nonprofit leader turned 2020 presidential candidate. His focus is bringing powerful solutions to Washington to reshape the economy for the 21st century. If you would please join me in welcoming to the stage presidential candidate Andrew Yang.
I'll circulate the other side too. Don't you worry. Welcome, welcome. So I'm gonna have to go to the stage because I think they have cameras and stuff. They'll be mad if I just mingle and talk to you all here. But I'd prefer to just talk to you all here. So first, I'd love to get a sense as to what brought you here today. Some of you I can tell are Yang Gang. It's very apparent. But then some of you, and you may be more important, are here because you're trying to figure out, you know what I mean, like. But, some of you are here because you're still trying to figure it out. So raise your hand if you're still trying to figure it out. Yeah, that's fantastic. So I'm going to try and speak to mainly, frankly, the people who are young and curious and don't know the heck much about me. That made me very happy. I'll have to go back to the stage because again, the camera people are going to get mad at me. But I'll be back. I just came in from LA. I did Bill Maher last night. I don't know if any of you saw this. Yeah. So today's a women's themed event, but I'm going to talk a bit more generally. I know because of the weather, the planned Women's March didn't transpire. My wife is in New York speaking at the Women's March there, which is such a source of joy and pride for me. Like seeing Evelyn, how many of you saw this story about her this week on the family? Yeah. It's been so awesome. I mean, obviously, it's been something that the family has known, but even really, like, Evelyn's parents didn't know, like Evelyn's brother didn't know. It's not the kind of thing that you share widely. And just the outpouring of love and support that she's gotten has been so incredible. And it's made me just so glad, really, that she received this opportunity to share a story that I thought was so important, and that now 15 other women have stepped forward, which is both terrible but also heartening, because like that was her goal, really. Yeah, so thank you for supporting Evelyn during this time, and it's been phenomenal experiencing this as a family. Like, it's actually, I feel like it's brought our family closer together and stronger over the last number of days, so thank you all. And the theme of today is women's issues, how we can make it better. And I'll say that, like, I think I can say things as a guy that most of us know. I said on a debate stage a couple of weeks ago that, maybe more like a month and a half ago now. Sorry, been so many debates, that our country is deeply misogynist. And I feel like I can get away with saying that because I'm a man, and so I say it, and I've known that for years and years now. I think if a woman said that, it might be somehow seem accusatory or inflammatory, but for me it's just a statement of fact. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that brought me to that over the last number of years. So I grew up a very awkward, nerdy Asian kid who was very scared of girls. And so to me, like, girls were like the most powerful beings in the world. Because I'd just be like walking around, like, you know, playing Dungeons and Dragons, reading science fiction books, and being scared of girls. And so there was like a long period where, to me, like, it felt like, well, like, you know, like, of course, like, everyone should feel the same way I do, where it's like, you know, girls are the most important thing in the world when you're like an awkward 12-year-old. And then when you get older and older, you realize just how the playing field is stacked against women at every turn. It started hitting home for me really after I graduated from school and started working. And then I saw many of the women that I worked with were having different sets of issues than I was. And then later, when I started a nonprofit to help entrepreneurs, then the issues got dialed up to like 100, where, raise your hand if you're interested in starting a business at some point. Well, I love you for it, because if you raise your hand, you know it's, well, you might not know this yet, but it's very, very hard to start a business. There are all these barriers that are laid in front of you. And what I realized after I was Grand Venture for America for a number of years is that those barriers are like 10 or 100-fold for women and people of color, where you think that the market is somehow fair or even-handed, and you realize it is not at every turn. So seeing those issues informed me, and then seeing what my wife dealt with both professionally and personally has hit home for me over the last number of years, where I realized that at every stage of our society, we are not doing enough for women. So the question is, how do you do more for women? If you're here today, at some point you heard that there's a guy running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month. You guys remember hearing that at some point? Many of you have heard that. And it's true, I do. It's not a new idea, it's a deeply American idea. Thomas Paine was for it at the founding of our country. Martin Luther King championed in the 1960s. I actually had the privilege of meeting with Dr. King's son in Atlanta a number of weeks ago. And he told me that this is what his dad was fighting for when he was killed in 1968. And that was inspiring. It was also incredible to sit down with someone who referred to Martin Luther King as dad. He was like, Dad did this, Dad said that, and I was like, you're calling him dad? It's like, well, your name's Martin Luther King III, so I guess that is what he is. But it made me realize that this was completely mainstream in the 60s, so much so that 1,000 economists, including Milton Friedman, endorsed it, and it passed the US House of Representatives in 1971, twice. Came this close to being law. Someone who worked in democratic politics at that time said to me that they made the biggest mistake of their careers not signing that deal, because it would have guaranteed every American family an income floor. And the reason they didn't sign the deal is they wanted a higher income floor. But any income floor would have been a vast improvement for many, many Americans. You would have eradicated poverty from 1971 till now in significant measure. Can you imagine how much human misery that would have alleviated? This close. And then 11 years later, one state passed a dividend where now everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked. Do you all know what state that is? Alaska. And how does Alaska pay for it? Oil. And what is the oil of the 21st century? Technology, data, AI, software. A study just came out that said that our data is now worth more than oil. How many of you saw that study? How many of you got your data check in the mail? So when people, I know at first blush, they hear about $1,000 a month, they think, well, that sounds too good to be true. But the truth is you're already generating billions and billions of dollars worth of value. We all are. The thing is, we're not seeing any of it. It's getting spirited out of your communities right into the hands of Facebook and Amazon and Google and these mega tech companies that are paying zero or near zero in taxes. So that's what we have to change. We get the value that's flowing out of your communities back into your hands, build a trickle-up economy from our people, our families, and our communities up. And who does this help more than anyone else? Women, people of color, people who have lower access to economic freedom and opportunities. That's the magic. That's what you all can make happen just like this in, gosh, how many days is it now? 16? Oh, wow. That's one reason I love, I don't know, most of you know this. This is the beginning of a 17-day bus tour for the campaign in the state. So I'm not going anywhere. I came in from LA and I'm just going to Iowa it up for the next 17 days. And let me tell you, I am thrilled for it because this place is magic. I love Iowa. You all have the future of the country in your hands. I did the math. Do you know how many Californians each of you is worth? 1,000 Californians each. That's right. So look around this auditorium. How many of us are there? I'm going to give a Trumpian estimate. There are 4,000 people in the auditorium. It's the biggest auditorium in the country. I think there are about 240 of you here today, but 240 would be 6 football stadiums full of Californians. That is the power here in this room to change the future of this country. That's why I love campaigning here. Each of you is magic. You can do something that the rest of our fellow Americans only dream of doing. Most of the country looks up and they see our government as a series of pipes clogged full of millions and millions of dollars of lobbyist cash. And they despair they can do nothing about it. They are correct. They can do nothing about it. You are the only people in the country who can flush the pipes clean. That's the power. So each of you has superpowers. Everyone you know who's an Iowa voter has superpowers. Anytime I talk to anyone here in the state, I feel the lever of history moving. It's a glorious feeling. That's why I'm so pumped to be here. You know, like, you do other things in other parts of the country, and it's insubstantial compared to what happens here. You move one Iowa voter, you know that that is a game changer in a way that is not true in any other part of the country. Now, I get the sense that many of you are students. How many of you are students right now? So get that shot. Yeah, you look around, I got that sense. You have that youthful air to you. I mean, you just look. Plus, I mean, we are where we are. We're in Iowa City. I love this town too. I'm just munching on Oasis falafel in the back. Anytime I'm anywhere near it, I'm like, someone get me some Oasis. Because it's like legitimately delicious Middle Eastern food. So if you're a student, if you're a young person, I apologize on behalf of the generations that have come before you because we have left you an awful mess. We really, really have. And worse yet, we've blamed you for it, which also makes no sense. You think of this in terms of climate change, which is true, but it's even worse than climate change. If you are a student here in college, college is now 2.5 times more expensive than it was when I went to school. Has it gotten 2.5 times better? No. It stayed about the same. Frankly, if you're generous, it stayed about the same. But it got 2.5 times more expensive. So why? you're paying the bill, or your parents are paying the bill, or you're taking out massive loans. The government's like, don't worry that I got you 150% more expensive. We'll give you loans. How many of you are going to graduate with student loan debt? We're up to $1.6 trillion in student loan debt and counting. And when you graduate, you can sense on some level that you're graduating into a job market that is less secure and less stable than what has gone before. That's true as well. There's a 40 to 44% chance that a recent college graduate will do a job that does not require a college degree. Does your college then go back and forgive your loans? No, it's a one-way trip. So you get the loans, we hope it works out, but it's working out for fewer and fewer people in this country. If you were born in the 1940s in the United States of America, there's a 93% chance you're going to be better off than your parents. That's the American dream that brought my family here. That's what many of us aspire to. If you were born in the 1990s, you're down to a 50-50 shot, and it's declining fast. That's what we have to apologize to you all for. The things you feel that we've left you a mess, we have. It's immoral. It's unconscionable. I'm a parent. I look at my kids and say, you deserve better. I'm going to look at you all and say, you deserve better. We cannot clean it up without you, though. We have to help your help to clean up the mess. And we have to clean up the mess in a way that will actually improve your lives. Not just the way you feel, but actually improve your way of life. This is a very, very high bar, and our politicians have been falling short for years. We've seen our communities start to slip as a result. Iowa's a traditionally purple state, the swingiest of swing states. Why did Donald Trump win this state by almost 10 points? Now, there are a number of reasons that are out there. If you turned on cable news over the last number of months, why would you think that Donald Trump won Iowa by almost 10 points? So what I've heard from people here is emails, racism, Facebook, Russia. Anyone else? Non-politician.
Those bots, the media bots.
Media bots.
Manufacturing jobs.
Yeah, so that's where I am. We blasted away 40,000 manufacturing jobs right here in Iowa. I have been to those communities, and after the factory closed, the shopping center closed, and then people left, and then the school shrank, and that town has never recovered. And you know what happened to that town in terms of its vote? It went straight from purple to red, bright red. And that happened in every town in your state that lost its manufacturing jobs. After we blast away the jobs, people turn to Trump. That is what you all have to remedy, because what happened to the manufacturing jobs is now shifting to other parts of the economy. How many of you have noticed stores and malls closing in Iowa? And why are those stores and malls closing? Amazon, that's right. Amazon's soaking up $20 billion a year, closing 30% of your stores and malls forever. What's the most common job in the economy? Retail clerk. Average retail clerk is a 39-year-old woman making between $8 and $12 an hour. When her store or mall closes, what is her next job going to be? No one knows, really. How much did Amazon pay in federal taxes last year? Zero. That is your math. 20 billion out, 30% of your stores closed, most common job starts to disappear. You all get zero back. That is the feeling here in Iowa. That's why many of the young people feel like they need to leave the state for greener pastures. That's how you have a purple state go to Trump by 10 points. So this is what you all have to reverse together. You have to rewrite the rules of the 21st century economy so that it works for you all. And you have to actually give the people here in Iowa a real path forward. Instead of feeling like their small towns are getting sucked dry, their kids are leaving the state, we have to make it so that Americans do not feel like they have to move in order to live the kind of lives that you want. And we've been letting things go the wrong direction for years and decades. So rebalancing this economy for our people and our families will take a very big move. Something as dramatic as putting $1,000 a month in the hands of every American at the age of 18. And when we do this, when we put this money into your hands, how will you spend it? Where will it go in real life?
Build local economy. Daycare.
How much of it will stay right here in Iowa? Not all of it. You might get your own Netflix password. But most of it would stay right here. It would go to Oasis Falafel and local businesses and local nonprofits and student life and religious organizations. This is the trickle-up economy, Iowa, from our people, our families, and our communities up. This is what you all can make real on February 3rd. This is how we make it right for our kids. Where we can look at our kids and say, and mean it, your country loves you, your country values you, and we will invest in you. I have run organizations for decades, and there are 3 things you can do with your people. Number 1, you do nothing, and they leave you within a year. Number 2, you tell them how great they are. That lasts for about a year, and then they leave you between years 1 and 2. The third thing is you actually invest in them. You pay them, you give them raises, you have some form of progression and advancement for them. If you do number 3, they stay with you for years and years, maybe forever. What are we doing right now in the United States of America for our kids? Some combination of 1 and 2, right? It's either nothing or telling them that it's great. And you can see through it. If you're a young person, you're like, this does not seem honest. We have to actually level up and say we're going to invest in you for real, in a way that you'll actually be able to feel and use. A path that'll actually lead you forward and make it so if you go to college, you don't feel like you're just loading yourself up with debt for an uncertain future. So this is the vision. This is the vision that got a guy who no one had ever heard of 12 months ago to now on 5th in the polls and rising to be the next President of the United States here in Iowa. We raised $16.5 million last quarter in increments of only $30 each, so my fans are almost as cheap as Bernie's. No corporate PAC money, just ordinary Americans saying we can do better for ourselves, we can do better for our people. It's all in your hands though. We can't clean this mess up without you. We're going to need you to fight for a better vision of tomorrow. We're going to have to own up to the fact that the problems in our society are actually very real, but it's going to be up to you all to have the energy to say, this is how we start to invest in ourselves and solve what's been tearing our communities apart. Donald Trump won Iowa and won so much of the rest of the country because he had a very simple message. He said he was going to make America great again. What did Hillary Clinton say in response?
It's already great.
America's already great. Y'all remember that? It's been a long 3 years, I know, Iowa City. But it's about to end. That response did not go over well with many people here in Iowa and around the country because the problems do exist. We need to acknowledge their depth and severity, but then we need solutions that will actually move our country forward. What were Donald Trump's solutions? Build a wall, turn the clock back, bring the oil jobs back. You know, Iowa City, more than just about anyone, that we need to turn the clock forward. We have to accelerate our economy and society to rise to the real challenges of the 21st century. We have to evolve in the way we see ourselves and our work and our value. And I'm the ideal candidate for that job because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. Thank you very much. Thank you, Iowa City. We're going to need you to fight for a future that you deserve. There is no one else who's going to be able to do it for you. It's got to be on you. But if you make this case to the rest of the country, it's going to spread like wildfire and there will be no stopping us. And it's going to start right here in Iowa. Thank you all. Let's take some questions.
Thank you. Another round of applause for the next President of the United States, Andrew Yang. sitting up here on these stools. We have 4 wonderful women who are going to share their stories with you and then ask you questions about issues near and dear to them. Please join me in welcoming our first guest, Dr. Alex Iannone. Dr. Iannone is a pediatric sleep physician. She has 3 kids and lives in Coralville, Iowa.
What first drew me to Andrew as a candidate is that he seems to be the only candidate that consistently has a strong focus on the importance of family. This really resonated with me because as a pediatrician, that's part of what drove me into that profession. And I really believe that the root of success lies within the family. A strong family starts at the beginning, and I think that includes the birth of a child. And current policies just are not working for working mothers who want to stay home with their children. I experienced this firsthand when at 5 weeks I had to return to work, and this was ironically to counsel families about placing their child's health first. So a question that I have for you is, how will your policies affect maternity leave for American women?
Thank you. Let's give also a round of applause for making that comment. Here's the list of countries that do not have paid maternity leave for new moms. The United States of America and Papua New Guinea. That is the entire list. We need to get off of this list as soon as possible. And you know what's even more egregious? When I memorized this list a year ago, it had 3 or 4 other countries on it. Lesotho, Liberia, and Swaziland. And those 3 countries got off the list in the last year. Can you believe that? I was like, you've got to be kidding me that, like, I need to update the list because the Swaziland, Liberia, and Lesotho got their shit together faster than the United States of America. We need to join the rest of the world, I don't even have to say civilized world, the rest of the world, in realizing that, of course, moms need to have time to spend with their kids and not be worried about putting food on the table for that period. So I'm championing 6 months paid family leave for any new parent. And so if there are 2 parents in the household, then that can be up to a year because you don't need to take it at the same time. And this is a no-brainer move. We're shooting ourselves in the foot because I think there's some demented, completely incorrect idea that it's going to be bad for business if parents take time off with their kids. You know what's terrible for business? Moms leaving the workforce and never coming back because they're not being supported properly. That's a disaster for business. You know what's also really bad for us all over time? Like not actually being able to look after your child at very, very crucial developmental points. So this is something that the rest of the country woke up to decades ago, and as your president, I will make sure that this gets passed because I'm very, very passionate about it. And like, it's an embarrassment. It's a national embarrassment, and it shows, this is when I talked about how misogynist our country is. Like, again, United States of America and Papua New Guinea, and that's the whole list. Like, you have to say that we must be pathologically anti-family in a way that is not true for any other civilized nation.
Please join me in welcoming our next woman, Dr. Laura Parkinson. Dr. Parkinson was born in Korea and grew up in the Detroit metro area before moving as a Navy hospital corpsman for 10 years, and then coming to Iowa, starting her own acupuncture practice in Ankeny.
Thank you. Let's go back to 2015. I was simultaneously going through a divorce and then trying to get my acupuncture practice off the ground. that first year I was in business, I made $17,000 to support myself and my 2 kids. So fast forward 4 years, I'm scrolling through Andrew's policies, and I'm completely in awe of the fact that he has taken the time to come up with policies that address increasing support for single parents and obviously the freedom dividend. So I appreciate the time and the effort that you've taken to come up with your policies to support the families that's going to give everybody a chance to succeed in life. One of the reasons that it was really important for me to persevere is that I have 2 children that are looking up to me, and I really wanted my daughter especially to see that despite, conflict, you can make it in the world. So my question for you is, how would you address the gender gaps in STEM, executive leadership, and entrepreneurship?
Oh, is your daughter here today?
She's not.
She's not?
No, she's not here today. I'll show it to her later.
First, I think all single moms are superheroes, so I just want to give you a round of applause on that. And I say this because I was a little bit cocky going into parenthood myself. I was like, people have been having kids since the dawn of time. How bad could this be? Parents are laughing now because then, now I liken it to like a grenade going off in your household, but the grenade just explodes over and over again. And then you and your spouse are like, who's jumping on the grenade? Are you jumping on the grenade? Like, I jumped on the grenade last time. And so I can't imagine what going through that alone was like. And that's one of the reasons I'm now so passionate about trying to help support families and single moms in particular. So it wasn't like an imposition on me to try and figure out how we can help single parents and single moms, because it's core. It's a big reason I'm running for president. 40% of American children today are born to single moms. So it's the new normal. And pretending that it is not is really unhealthy and tragic for many of our families and kids. And when you think about single parent, 90% of the time that's single mom. So, it's something that falls on women much more heavily. So all of that said, we need to help women succeed and excel in every field, certainly including STEM and executive fields. One of the things I'm 100% certain of is that women entrepreneurs are among the most untapped resources in our society today. Because I mean, hats off to you when you say you made $17,000 as an acupuncturist, because that's really pure entrepreneurship. I can sense that you just have this acupuncture practice, and you had people that came to you to feel better, and they did feel better, because I think acupuncture is awesome. People in my family have used acupuncture to great effect when they were struggling with various things and pain. Like Evelyn saw someone after she had our first child because she, was having trouble recovering. So when you look at a woman who's trying to start a business, the obstacles start immediately. Where women have lower levels of savings and income, which is the first thing you would need to do to start a business. Women have a harder time accessing mentorship, guidance, coaching, loans, anything that you need to start a business. So the first thing we would need to do is put $1,000 a month into the hands of every American, obviously every woman. And do you all think that that would increase the level of resources available to women and women-owned businesses? I'm actually going to go a step further. It is just about the only thing that would meaningfully unleash women. If women felt like their needs were going to be attended to, and their kids' needs, because each of your kids is going to get $1,000 a month when they hit 18, then so many women would actually feel empowered to do what you've done and start a business and take some risks and try and actually provide something that the community needs. Because most of entrepreneurship is not about making money. Most anyone who started something, raise your hand if you've actually started a business, you know that you're not doing it because it's the most optimal way to maximize your economic return. You're all laughing. Like, it's a very dumb way to do that. If you looked at like your hourly labor, you know, like the cost, like it goes down really quickly because you're like cleaning the floors, you're like selling all the time, like you never turn off. So you're doing it because you think that the community really needs what you have to offer, and I'm sure they do in your case. So you can imagine millions of American women actually being able to put what's inside of them out into the world more effectively. This is the future that we need. This is what the 21st century economy has to look like. Because if it's not about making us stronger and healthier, we are sunk. If we make it about maximizing capital efficiency, which is what it is right now, then we lose to the robot trucks and the AI and the contract editing software and the software that can read the radiology films more effectively than the most experienced doctor. We're gonna lose on an epic, catastrophic scale unless we actually move the economy towards making us stronger and healthier. And you know who's gonna make that happen? Women. It's the only way. So how do we make this happen? We put money into your hands and let you actually take the things inside you that you want to see in the world and make them real. And if we do this, then you're going to see women start to excel at much higher levels in every field, including starting a business, executive leadership, and STEM fields.
Thank you so much, Dr. Parkinson. Coming to the stage next is Callie.
I don't have one yet. So she just said first acupuncturist in the White House. And I said, sure, I don't have one yet, so you're it. I'm sure someone has that on film, so it'll be like very easy just to bust it out and be like, hey, Andrew, remember this? I'd be like, yeah, I'd love that.
Callie is a mother of 4 and a work-from-home mother. She is a life coach, has her own podcast, and does so many other wonderful things empowering women in birth, families, and parents.
So today actually marks the 10-year anniversary of me becoming a mother. Yes, my 10-year-old son Kai is sitting right over there. Happy birthday, Kai!
Happy birthday!
And when I was asked to talk about which one of your policies was most important to me, I couldn't narrow it down to one. It was like I had to get behind all of them. This whole idea of putting humanity first, above robots, and putting our children first. I would seriously wake up in the middle of the night going, I have to be on the front lines of this in Iowa. I have to lead my neighbors and tell them about this and bring this, because I know how powerful we are, and I am so incredibly proud to be up here with you.
And one of the things I say is that special needs is the new normal in this country. How many of you all know someone who, friend, neighbor, family member who's autistic, has special needs, differently abled? Now look at that, it's virtually everyone. And so we have to ask ourselves, what do you do to help families who are in that position where you have a kid who just needs more? And right now our schools do not have the resources to do a lot for someone who has different needs. So we have to change this from top to bottom, and it's easier than you think, I'm happy to say. One of the reasons why I'm so excited, so I was just on Bill Maher last night, and he said something to me, after the cameras were off. But he said, in another context, he said, one of the things the government's really good at is putting money into people's hands. That's actually our government's core competency in many ways. So what we have to do is we have to take resources and put them into the family's hands so that they actually can get the kids the help that they need. When the kid gets to the school, right now, schools don't have the funding. The US Congress said that they're going to pay for 40% of educational needs for kids who are autistic and have different needs in schools. It being Washington, D.C., they didn't actually do it. They fund 15% of it, which means that if your kid shows up to the school's like, I don't have the special needs teacher, the expertise, the resources. So I'm saying, as your president, forget 40%, I'm gonna fund it 100% and then actually make it so that when they show up. And this way the communities don't have to make different choices. And this is going to help at least some kids have different trajectories, but many people will still not be able to work independently in various ways. And the argument that many people in the special needs community make, which is 100% correct, and I'm gonna say this actual, like you'll hear it when you hear this, they'll be familiar to you because we use it for everybody. They say, hey, if your organization accommodated autistic people better, they would find that they are awesome contributors and you need to do more to accommodate them. And I say that's all completely true, but it shouldn't matter that they can contribute to your organization's money-making abilities for them to live the kind of life that they want to live. They have intrinsic value as human beings, independent of whether they can make a company money. And the reason why I say that this is an argument that's used in a variety of contexts, how many of you heard something like this at some point? We need to elevate more women to positions of leadership because the businesses perform better when there are more women in leadership teams. How many of you have heard an argument like that? And again, 100% agree, but if you dig in, you realize that you're saying, wait a minute, we should treat women well because we'll make more money. And what I'm saying is we should treat women well regardless of whether or not we're gonna make the company more money. That's not the point. So this is a trap for people in the special needs and disability community. I'm going to suggest it's actually a trap for women too. Like, we actually have to make the economy more human and revolve around our needs rather than constantly saying that we can plug into the machine and make the machine work better. Because many of us, frankly, are not going to be able to plug into the machine and make it work better. If you have a truly nonverbal autistic kid, that person's going to need care for the rest of their life. And so we need to, as a country, come together and say, that person has these needs, that's completely fine. We're the richest, most abundant society in the history of the world. Our economy's up to $21 trillion and counting. And one of the biggest farces in American life today is that we don't have the money to take care of our people. Do you all remember voting for the $4 trillion bailout of Wall Street 12 years ago? No, none of us voted for that. Like, none of us were like, oh yeah, they need it, what's that? Like, let's get them the money. Do you remember anyone at the time making those decisions being like, I don't know if we have $4 trillion, I don't know if we can, do you remember that either? Of course not. They were like, the banks need $4 trillion, let's give it to them. We had a choice that moment to either bail out the banks or keep Americans in their homes. And I'm going to say we chose the wrong thing. We're at the same point right now where we can either choose taking care of the company's bottom lines or we can take care of our people, including special needs kids, special needs adults, people that are going to need care their entire lives. And I say this time we choose our people. And that's not just people in the special needs community, that includes every single one of you who's graduating with student loan debt. If you have a $1.6 trillion stack of student loan debt, much of which was immorally generated, you can either choose to service those loans and stack it on top of your young people and say, hey, you're out of luck, or you can choose your people. I say we choose our people. Our economy has to actually revolve around how we are doing, not the other way around. Because if we make ourselves all servants to the economy, again, we're going to lose, and you're going to have families making impossible arguments that their special needs kids can somehow make a company more money, when in some cases that's just not going to be the case. Let's deliver a human-centered economy for Callie and her 4 kids. Listen She's very, very awesome. You probably know that, right? Now the man from stage on the microphone saying that too.
Please join me in welcoming our next guest, Reverend Wendy. Reverend Wendy is our Director of Spiritual and Cultural Outreach here at the Yang Campaign. She is a minister, a certified chaplain, an educator, a mother who lives in DC. She does wonderful advocacy work, and we are so grateful that she is joining us here today.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here. Hi, everybody. So I found Andrew in the New York Times in February of 2018. There was an article introducing his candidacy. It was entitled, "The Robots Are Coming." I said, okay, you got me. I want to read further. And it was talking about the threat of automation and talking about how manufacturing jobs were disappearing in the Midwest. So I'm reading a little further and I'm like, wow, this guy's onto something. I'm originally from Ohio. Go Bucks. Say that.
I think they like that.
I'm sorry. It's a habit. I'm sorry. Go.
Wendy has no official role with the Yankees.
Just lost my job.
Kidding.
But I'm saying all that to say that in Portsmouth, Ohio, which is an Appalachian country on the Ohio River across from Kentucky and West Virginia, I saw my grandfather's steel mill job get automated away. My grandmother worked at the shoe factory. So that jumped out at me. And then his solution he was offering was the universal basic income. And talking about folks who were hurting, needing a lifeline, needing something to survive. And I thought about how $1,000 a month would have helped my family at the time to make ends meet until we figured out what the next steps were going to be. So I was in from reading that article because I just so strongly believe in UBI. That's what brought me to the table. And so I committed then to go around and just talk about that to as many people as possible. And as a matter of fact, as I talk with more and more people, they're buying into it. I certainly love the fact that it's Dr. King championed it as well. But there's also skepticism out there. There's also questions about, is he really real? Is that something that can really happen? Is that possible? And what about my benefits that I already have? What about that my grandmother's on Social Security? Will she still get it? Does it cancel that out? I'm a single mother. You know, some people, Andrew, have been down so long, they don't even know how to look up. So what would you say to the folks who are wondering about how UBI will stack with other benefits or not?
Well, thank you for raising that perspective, and I think that's actually the fundamental obstacle we have to overcome, is that people have their heads down for so long that we don't think we can actually do better for ourselves. Again, that's one reason why I love being here in Iowa, is that you are unusually confident about your ability to shape the future, rightfully so. That if you want to rewrite the rules to work for us, you can do it. That's the wonder, it's the joy of being here. Most human beings actually operate in a constant mode of resource scarcity, particularly around money, because our lives are organized around it. If you can save 20 bucks by doing something, you'd be like, oh, I should do that. I remember as a kid, I'm the son of immigrants, so my parents are naturally very stingy. And so I vividly remember being like, there's this one gas station that charges like 10 cents a gallon less for gas, which means if I get there, I can save a buck or two.
You did that too?
Oh yeah, I did that. I remember like scrounging together, being like, I have enough. I remember distinctly, I had enough money to buy 1 gallon of gas.
Been there.
So you're like, just get this 1 gallon and get out of there. And so if you go to someone who literally is organizing their day around this sort of calculation, and then say, hey, the magical agent man wants to give you $1,000 a month, then people will be like, a very natural human reaction is to be like, that's impossible.
Right.
Because this thing that I don't have enough of ever, cannot grow on trees to the extent that it can just be given to each of us in this way. And then the next human reaction is to say, after it's impossible, it's like, well, if you did that, it would hurt us somehow, would cause rampant inflation, like all these problems would ensue. And that's like a natural reaction that we all have because we're all programmed for resource scarcity. It's very, very important for us evolutionarily. You know, because historically, it wasn't not just money, it was like, do I have enough food to make it through the winter? Like, do I have enough of this to do that? Like, everything was relatively finite. Now, what's the opposite of a mindset of scarcity? A mindset of abundance, which is, there's enough to go around. If you get it, it doesn't hurt me. You're doing well, I'm doing well too. I'm happy for you. Like, that is what's been lost in America over the last number of years. Because we've allowed ourselves to get this boot on our throats that is now oppressing most of us. 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Almost half can't afford an unexpected $500 bill. And so, studies have shown that if you can't pay your bills, it has the functional impact of decreasing your IQ by 13 points, or 1 standard deviation. So, let me ask, this will be interesting. How many of you would agree with this statement? Our fellow Americans are getting less optimistic, less reasonable, less rational, and more subject to bad ideas and bad leadership. Raise your hand if you'd agree with that statement. Yeah, look around, it's virtually all of us. That is what you would expect to happen if you were to introduce pervasive financial insecurity into a society. Because if you have a lot of people that can't pay their bills, then they become like, oh, yeah, what's that? Blame that person, okay. Well, climate change, I can't even pay next month's rent. Like, climate change, must be bunk anyway. Like that's just sort of like the mindset that is now infiltrating more and more Americans. And it's true too of people who aren't a fixed income, because like my parents aren't fixed incomes. And it took me a while to figure out what being on a fixed income means if you're an American in a certain position. Because as like a younger person, you're like, who knows? Maybe I could get a raise next month or next year. Or like, I could do this, I could do that. Like, it's all very uncertain. But then for my parents, it's like, no, there is actually very limited uncertainty. This is how much money you'll get. There will not be more money coming. There is no like new earning potential. And so here's your income level, and then here are your costs. They're just gonna creep up on you more and more. We're gonna like stick it to you with drug prices, we're gonna stick it to you with anything health insurance related, we're gonna stick it to you housing, we're gonna just like keep sticking it to you. And that introduces a real level of stress and anxiety and financial insecurity, because you know your revenue's not growing, but your expenses are. That's like a really negative, nasty feeling. So this is all a very long-winded way of saying to the people that are concerned about it, I get it. I know. It's hard to believe that we can do better for you and your families. But the $1,000 a month stacks on top of Social Security. It would be the greatest expansion to Social Security benefits in generations. And one of the reasons why we need to do this is that we have a retirement crisis on our hands that's going to get worse and worse as we go through the generations. There are millions of baby boomers who will never be able to retire and be working until the day they die. Do we all want to live in a country where you go into a convenience store and it's a senior citizen who's like working there to make ends meet? No, we don't want that. Like, that person should be enjoying their golden years. It should be like a younger person working for beer money at the convenience store. So we can make that possible. You can't retire on Social Security benefits right now. Like, you'd have a fighting chance to do so if you had the dividend on top of it. I'm a Gen Xer. And the retirement crisis is going to be much worse for us. You know who's going to be worse for? Millennials. It's going to be worse than that, because if you look at the savings levels at each successive generation, they're all cratering. You know, the $1,000 a month that actually can help reverse that, can help reorganize our economy so that aging Americans actually get the care they need, that we can start investing in many innovations that actually might be able to help seniors live awesome lives. Like, one thing that is an example of something some of my friends are working on, this is a little bit far afield, but I thought it was cool, is autonomous electric cars that get used by senior citizens because they have mobility issues, you know, so you can't drive so much, the rest of it. Imagine if some freaking self-driving electric car just like comes up to your doorstep, you like work your way into the thing, it just takes you wherever you want to go. Like, that's the kind of thing that we can make happen for senior citizens and actually be able to enjoy retirement in a real way. So I know it's a challenge because, again, most Americans are not familiar with abundance, especially now. This is what we have to change together Immediately, essentially. Because right now, scarcity is rising and winning. Do you think that as a country we're going to be able to pull together and fight climate change if a mindset of scarcity is winning in this country? No. Because if people have their boot on their throat and say, hey, we have to fight climate change, what do they hear? Higher prices, greater inconvenience, fewer jobs, make my life harder. That's what millions of Americans hear when you say we have to fight climate change. You got to get that boot off their throats, and then you come back and say, hey, we need to fight climate change. They'll look up, they'll see their kid, they'll realize their kid's future is secure, we're investing in them, and then they'll say, yeah, we do need to fight climate change because we're all going to be here a while.
Thank you so much, Reverend. And now I believe we'll bring Conrad out to take a few questions from the audience with what time we have remaining.
Yes. All right, question?
So, I really appreciate your approach towards the
Where are you?
right here.
Oh, there you go.
The universal basic income. But how do you account for the race wage gap and the sex wage gap? Do you think that universal basic income should be subsidized for what women are already not making or minorities are already not making? Because I've seen this great poster of equality versus equity. So if you give everybody $1,000, it raises everybody up, but what about the people that are already down? How are you going to raise those people up?
Thank you for the question. $1,000 a month, the way I see it is like it's a foundation or a floor, and then you have to build on top of it. So if you have $1,000 a month, does that somehow make everything even for, let's say, men and women or people of color and other groups? Of course not. Does it do more for the people that need it more? Does it help even the playing field? Yes. So when you're building a house, the first thing you do is you build the foundation, and then you look around and say, okay, what else do we need? Are there going to be pervasive issues that affect women that we need to address on top of the floor? Yes. Do we need to do more for people of color? Yes. Do we need to do more for people who have special needs? Yes. Do we need to do more for single moms? Yes. So we should keep on investing in solutions that affect each individual group. But the foundation does have the immediate net impact of helping those who have the least the most. And the example I use is if we sneak into Jeff Bezos's bank account and give him $1,000 a month, what effect does it have? Zero. He wouldn't even notice. Just be changing one digit in one account. You know what I mean? You put $1,000 a month in the hands of a woman who's struggling to make ends meet here in Iowa, it's going to be a game changer. So we have to do something that's going to help people in a very immediate, powerful way, and then it's going to make us better able to solve the problems that exist on top of that. And to me, one reason why this is such an appealing solution, it's worked in Alaska for almost 40 years, and it has decreased income inequality in Alaska for almost 40 years. This is going to be more impactful for women and people of color from day one, and then we'll be able to turn our attention to actually solving the additional problems that exist on top of that. So one example I use from the debate, women of color are 320% more likely to die of pregnancy complications than white women. Does $1,000 a month do anything to change that? Not really. It might change it by a smidgen. It might go down from 320% to 315%. So then do you need to have systemic solutions to say, okay, what the heck is causing this incredible inequity? And it could be training of doctors, it could be the sort of prenatal care that certain moms receive. You have to go after each problem in concert. I would never be someone who would suggest that $1,000 a month somehow alleviates the pervasive inequities that face women and women of color in particular.
Hi, how are you? So my question is a little bit complex, has probably 2 steps, but so you tell us to think big regarding UBI. I know that there's challenges on how to pass this at some point. I know that you've said that in the past you believe in Medicare for all, but I don't see that you don't necessarily try to implement it right away. And the reason this is important for me as a woman, and I think it should be important for everybody, but as a woman personally, I feel that we are not free as long as we don't have Medicare for all. The reason I'm saying this is I, as a woman, never thought about getting married, okay? So I come from another country, I come from Peru. When I came to the US, I came with my boyfriend, never thought about getting married. Actually, I don't want to do that. But now I have to think about it, right? Because let's say if I lose my job or I get sick enough to not being able to work, I need to have a backup plan, right? And that's, maybe I have to get married with my boyfriend now because, you know, I can get his insurance. So, and the same goes the other way around. If I want to get a divorce, I might feel fear of not, you know, losing my insurance, my husband's or my partner's insurance. So I think that speaks as a woman for my freedom.
I could not agree more that our healthcare system is one of the primary impediments to us actually being free in this country. That even if you're fortunate enough to have health insurance coverage, you don't change jobs, much less likely to start a business. You can't actually make the kind of moves that you want to make because you're locked in place by our current healthcare system. We also have millions of people who don't have adequate coverage. So I would champion universal healthcare from day one. And again, I'm the numbers guy. Anyone who says we can't pay for it has not looked at the numbers. We're spending $3.6 trillion right now on our healthcare to worse results than anyone else. 30% of its waste, or $1 trillion. And our system right now is not designed to make us stronger and healthier. What's it designed for? Making maximal profits and revenues for the drug companies, the private insurance companies, the device manufacturers. So I want us to be truly free. I could not agree with you more that healthcare is locking us in place. And if you're sick and you can't pay for care, that's not free. And you can't go to being like, oh, well, you're free to die. I mean, that's not freedom. So we need to actually get with the developed world and have healthcare as a basic right of being an American. And we need to put $1,000 a month into our hands, which I think I could get done a little bit faster. But I want to follow it up with universal health care, price on carbon, fight climate change, like all the big priorities we have. I'm going to get a lot of them done very, very quickly. And I'm going to present you with a vision of how I can get this stuff done in a way that others cannot. So picture the headlines, February 4th, Andrew Yang wins Iowa, shocks the world. Think about what that headline will mean everywhere. People will be like, what just happened? Oh my gosh. Like, Andrew Yang just won Iowa. I guarantee you, we win Iowa, we win New Hampshire easily, because we have a lot of strength in New Hampshire. The third party in New Hampshire is libertarians, and libertarians love the freedom dividend. It's like half named after them. Now, what's the #1 criteria that Democratic voters have for who the nominee should be? Beat Trump. In one survey, I got 10% of Trump voters in a swing state who said they would choose me over Trump. Another survey said that 18% of college Republicans would choose me over Trump. You know who's figured out that I'm the best opponent to beat Donald Trump? #1, the internet betting markets, where they've laid the odds and they've said that, like, I have the highest head-to-head, like I'm actually a heavy favorite against Trump. And #2, the Trump campaign. One of their advisors was quoted saying, like, if there's someone we're worried about, it's Yang. And I'm the only candidate in the field that Donald Trump has not tweeted about. And he hasn't tweeted about me because, 1, his followers kind of like me, and 2, I'm better at the internet than he is. So if you imagine after we present this vision to the rest of the country on February 3rd. It goes through New Hampshire, then Nevada, then South Carolina, where Dave Chappelle's performing for me, so I think I'll have some fans. And then Super Tuesday, we win the White House, and the Democrats and progressives are so pumped to have beaten Donald Trump. They're like, yeah, let's pass some big laws. Like, it's a new day, a new era. And then the Republicans and conservatives look up and say, wait a minute, like, how do I feel about this dividend that Yang's been running on? It's a massive win for rural areas, for red states on the interior that are going to be blasted by manufacturing. And can you imagine the congressperson who goes to his or her constituents and says, this money's going to hurt you? It's a really tough argument. And then can you imagine me showing up to that person's office in their district being like, hey, this person's standing between you and your families and the dividend that you know at this point the vast majority of Americans want. Can you imagine that congressperson's phone lines in the office? People would be like, what are you doing? So we get the dividend passed, and then we'll all have this unfamiliar feeling where the government did something that actually works, that we actually like. And then Republicans will look up and be like, wow, people like me for a change? This is highly unusual. And folks on both sides of the aisle will see that I'm completely solutions-oriented. I just want to improve our way of life. And then we're going to be able to generate energy around other things that we can agree on, which I believe is improving our healthcare system, improving our criminal justice system, investing in infrastructure. I cannot believe that Donald Trump did not even build us some highways and bridges and roads, because I thought at least he'd do it to put his name on them. I was willing to accept Trump Bridge just to have the bridge, but he just left us more to do. So this is what we can all make happen very, very quickly. As your president, I'll get money into your hands, which will help make you more free, and then we're going to get healthcare off of your backs, because that is a must. It's destroying many, many American lives.
All right, and we have time for just one last question.
Choose wisely, Conrad. I'm kidding. I don't get to take pictures. That's a crime against humanity.
Hi. Over the last couple of years, we've heard 1 in 4, 1 in 3, 1 in 2 women are sexually assaulted on college campuses and otherwise. What are you going to do about rehabilitation for perpetrators and support for survivors/victims?
Whatever the statistics are, I'm pretty sure they undercount, because whoever is a victim often does not want to share it, even with anybody, even anonymously. And many people who are victims of sexual assault essentially try and pretend it didn't happen, like even for themselves. So to me, a lot of this is around trying to help our boys develop into strong, healthy men who will not assault women. And this is something I'm very passionate about. Strong women treat women well. The question is, why do we have trouble having our boys become strong young men? And that's a fundamental question that we've been wrestling with for a long time. I love the fact that you're talking about rehabilitating perpetrators, because even that is a more generous response, and I believe a more effective response than many people immediately come to the table with. Universities have inherited this responsibility in a way that they did not have it years ago. What did they do years ago? Just pretend it didn't happen and sweep it under the rug, like women suffered in silence. Now we've come a great way forward, which is that now, at least sometimes, women come forward and say that, you know, this person assaulted me, this person attacked me. And now the universities are in a deeply uncomfortable position because they're not sure how to resolve or adjudicate that kind of issue. So what the universities have done, they look to the government for guidance, and then the government has given them guidance either one direction or the other. And the universities, and this is true of just American life at this point, universities will do whatever the universities think is in their best interest. So the government says, hey, benefit of the doubt this way, then they say, okay, benefit of the doubt in a very big way this way. And then the other way, it's a very difficult standard. To me, one of the challenges that the universities aren't really institutionally very well designed or equipped for this. So we need to try to have more resources available to universities from the Department of Education, including a tighter relationship with local law enforcement, so that they can actually have someone independent of the university in particular types of cases. A lot of the progress will be made when we're actually able to recognize the prevalence of this problem, but also that it's a problem that exists really primarily among men, that if men can become stronger and healthier and also acknowledge when they have a problem, and if they've done wrong, that they'll be able to become a better person over time and not have it be something that is either ignored or destroys their life utterly. That's the challenge that we have to reach. There is no easy answer because sexual assault is real on college campuses, it's real in doctors' offices, it's real in many, many parts of American life. As president, one of the things I will commit to is having a massive national initiative around figuring out why so many of our young men are not developing in healthy, positive ways where sexuality is concerned. And part of this, and this is, I'm just going to take this to another place for a moment, I think rampant access to pornography at young ages is influencing the formation of many of our young people's attitudes towards women in particular. And I'm not someone who's going to say like, hey, government should do this, government should do that, like we have to come in and go hard. But as a parent of 2 young boys, I'm deeply concerned that they're going to come home at age 12, 13 and have seen all sorts of crazy stuff online that's going to end up like screwing up their young minds and make them more likely to do something heinous or awful down the road. So as a parent, I want help. As president, I will offer those parents help and say, look, if you want to try and have your kids develop positive attitudes towards women, we have to help you do that, and that includes reining in technology's access to materials that could actually influence their attitudes.
Thank you, Andrew. That's all the time we have for questions today. One last round of applause for the next President of the United States, Andrew Yang.
Thank you, Iowa City. Let's make history together on February 3rd. Let's turn the ship around. We can do it. If you make this message loud and clear to the rest of the country, oh boy, there's going to be no stopping us. I can feel it. It's building. The wave is building. It's going to happen right here. Thank you all.
This was my first time.
So this was your first time seeing Andrew speak. So thoughts, opinions?
Even better in person. I love it when he pauses and gets that little deep, like, how am I going to phrase this? Very authentic in the moment, humorous, and genuine.
It's very positive where the government says we will pay for the testing of those rape kits, which it's embarrassing that that is actually what's required to get those rape kits actually processed, but the resources are going to do so.
For Andrew, when I read that article, it was speaking to me because he was talking about helping people and people being forgotten and humanity being left behind. And I was like, I know that story personally, and I see it play out in our churches and in our families, but I've experienced it, and I don't hear anybody else speaking about that. Everybody's speaking about ideas. He's offering a tangible solution.
But it didn't matter because I met people Trump, Hillary, pro-choice, pro-life, atheist, or Christian. I'm like, and no one was like, oh, I hate you, get out of here. We were all like a family. Yeah, let's do this.
So what do you think of Yang today, man?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
It was pretty good. I want to hear more of his platform on recycling. Sustainability. That's what I'm really big into.
We got this right here. Someone's already made up their mind. Whoa. Yeah, and I think we got one here that we got someone up to second place right here, which is always a good thing. We changed some minds. Yeah. So we're doing Lord's work here. Another one who knew exactly what was up.
You do know what's up. What's your name?
I do know what's up. My name's Amanda.
Yeah, I think it's just nice to hear like how so many different ways the freedom dividend could help so many different people.
Yo, this is a different bus, right? It's not the same bus.
It's not. It's a different bus.
Cool though.
Yeah.
Cool. Definitely like boom, Yang 2020.